Issues with the internet?
Um, well, we're starting live now, right now, but it seems to be okay. But if we have any trouble, we'll let you know. But this is Fam Electric Ghost, and we're talking to Anna Lee, CEO of Outsource Your Task. And welcome to the Fam Electric Ghost podcast. How you doing today?
Great. Thank you so much for having me.
And I want to let people know that we do have your URL, outsourceyourtask.com, there on the page. You can't click on that now, but that will be fully clickable when we're published. Right now, we're on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch live. And I want to thank you for being a guest on the podcast. A couple questions we always ask anybody that's on the show before we talk about your story is like, what motivates you and why do you do what you do?
Great question. Uh, what motivates me? I think the life itself. I really, really appreciate every single day that I get to live on this planet. Obviously, I have family, and family motivates me a lot. But I think just general motivator is, wake up every day and just have as much joy as possible.
That's a good place to be. To have a positive outlook, and what you're doing with businesses in terms of outsourcing tasks and helping businesses find the top 3% talent worldwide. What made you go into that field? What was that your particular area?
Oh, I think it was just the sheer accident that I even kind of become a CEO of this company. I worked for a couple of corporate companies and always had an itch for entrepreneurship. So that's for sure. And I think as I was exploring different sort of side gigs, my husband and I started investing in real estate. And at some point, I wanted to go in and have my own entity within the real estate. I wanted to start a wholesaling company, still employed at the time. So I couldn't really dedicate a lot of time to it. So I actually started outsourcing myself. And as I outsourced with agencies, I really didn't have great experience. So I feel like I created a process for myself, being my own customer. And as I created a customer of how to efficiently hire people and find the right people, I think this is where a lot of people in my masterminds were asking me about the process. I started kind of sharing more information, and then eventually just kind of became somebody just gave me a tip, like, and said you have to create a course and just kind of teach people on how to do it because it's so effective. So once I created a course, it started selling, and then people started coming back to me saying, "Oh my
Um,
gosh, it was amazing." And then all of a sudden they're saying, "Why don't you actually hire for us?" So it was a complete accident how I ended up in this business. But looking back, I feel like all the experience in the corporate world and even the little business that I started to just led me to have this. So it's some sort of destiny that I appeared here, and I really enjoy this now.
so you were able to come up with like a roadmap of your methodology and your master class. Did you actually turn it? Is it primarily through your master class, or did you actually write like any like a book or anything to go with it, or you're just doing through like webinars and coursework and master classes?
So it's funny. I knew nothing about creating courses. I remember just asking my husband, like, take our three kids away for a weekend, and I'll figure this out. I already had an outline of what I do for sourcing, and I basically taught myself within a day where to record myself, what platform to use, and within 2 days, I actually produced a course. And because I didn't even think of that as a business, right? It was
Mhm.
just, let me just record something that I can share with some of my friends because I'm tired of repeating myself over and over. I didn't really realize that I have a diamond in my hand afterwards, right? So I think sometimes we just overthink.
Yeah,
In business, we tend to overthink. Let me just educate myself to the point where I feel ready. Sometimes you just have to leap for that.
yeah. It's well, being an artist, like I'm a producer, musician, but also my other hat, which I wear today, is I'm a business analyst, data analyst. So I got like left and right brain.
Yes.
going on. And but a lot of times, like in the arts, we kind of go with in the moment, kind of stream of
Correct.
consciousness, kind of the idea of the muse is like you trust yourself that you know something and you just got to go and not procrastinate and put it down. So whether we
Absolutely.
put it down on a multi-track or you put it on a voice recorder or you put it on a canvas or you got to take that idea out of yourself and put it out there into the world. That
Hmm.
seems to be the hard part that a lot of people obsess about. It's got to be perfect. It's got to be this. It's got, a lot of times like you can have an outline, you can have a plan, but eventually you got to put it down. Like as an artist, we put down like multiple demos. You might have like 90 demos, 50 demos
Yeah.
of the same song. But
That's a very great
usually
analogy.
but the first couple of takes usually are closer to the truth of what you were trying to do.
Right.
And when you spend too much time, you sometimes can wreck what you were working on. You can lose
Mm,
the intent because you start to second guess yourself and then you don't actually put together, what you need to do. So what you're
that's so
saying
true.
seems like you decided like you don't want to get in that paralysis thing. You want
Yep.
to actually just get it down.
Yeah, it doesn't always work, trust me. I'm also very analytical in nature, but I'm learning to be more artistic.
Yeah, that's interesting because a lot of times though with outsourcing, and I live in this model. Like we have a lot of people we work with overseas, like in Mumbai or in Poland. There's a lot of resource Ireland. Like there's a lot of companies in the U.S. that we have especially programmers. Like I'm an
Mhm.
analyst, but a lot of our programmers are like international. Like we find the right resource for the right capability wherever they are,
Right.
and we're very comfortable with that. There's some people that feel like, oh, I gotta have somebody in the office. They want to have that control. How do you get over that? Explain to people that that's not always necessary to actually have good quality work.
Right. But I think, I mean, the good lesson that we all had was during COVID, right? So somehow, as a business owner, you had to operate. If you did operate, if you didn't have to shut down, you operated with remote employees. So I think it's a little bit, we're in the moment where we see the trend of folks kind of having a hybrid model. And I do believe that, having people in the office is important, but for the roles that are important strategically to be local. I'll give you an example. A few years ago, our whole family, we used to live in Switzerland, and I had a corporate assignment for work, and my husband used to flip houses in the United States. So he could complete it all, but one of the key important people that we had to have was a project manager that would oversee the contractors, right? You can't really have that person, somewhere in India or Philippines. Obviously, that person had to be boots on the ground. But, my husband could do everything else, right?
Mhm.
Finding a deal, managing finances, even managing contractors in the way that, he has to pay them, control the quality, managing the project manager. Um, but yeah, everything else was remote. We proved to ourselves first that we could do a lot of things remotely and being so far away from United States. And then that I think helped us out, outsource as much, of the work that doesn't require to be on site. So yeah, you just have to evaluate. Am I having the salesperson? I don't know. Let's say if you're in a home service business, well, if you have to have a salesperson be at the customer's house and, maybe take some measurements and provide the quote, yes, you can't really outsource.
Yeah.
But if you said it, if you have to create a website, if you have to run your marketing, if you have to do bookkeeping or any admin work, all of these positions can easily be outsourced, right? And even the sales roles, to be honest, if you don't have to be at the customer's house measuring anything or talking to them in person, we place a lot of salespeople that just somewhere in Nicaragua or Argentina, and they call folks in US and
Yeah,
sound great.
cold calling. Yeah, cold calling is
Exactly.
like my father was a Prudential sales agent for like 30 years.
Yep.
And the skill set of like, looking up who just bought a house, who
Yep.
just got
Exactly.
married, who so there's research, and some of that research back in the day, he had to go find that data wherever it was not on the net. He didn't have the net, but a lot of it was on the phone, and then he had to
Yeah,
go in person. But there's a lot of skills today because of the internet and access to databases and access to information that you can get. There's a lot of online sales, like you're saying. I've seen it, like even in insurance. There's a lot of people that prefer to actually buy their insurance online rather than having an agent come because it's annoying for them to have the agent come. There's still some people that like the agent to come to their house, but other people are just, why I just want to be able to go and compare things and make my own choice. And so I
exactly.
think I think with that kind of allowing people to actually comparison shop, even to the point of cars. People don't like going to haggle with a car dealer. They rather
Absolutely.
find a way to get it delivered so I don't have to hassle. so
Yes.
so there's a lot of things that have become, you know, remote, but I think there's a control scheme. Like if you are like you want to be able to bring everybody into the room, have that SCAD, have that JAD session, have everybody do that whiteboard. But I do whiteboards, Kanban, whiteboards, agile stuff all virtually. I've been doing it
Yeah,
for
I
over
mean, we have
10 years.
systems now, CRMs, Monday.com or whatever it is, right? Where you can just, or like so many tools right now, mirror boards, where we can all, people from all over the world can globally work in one platform. So it's, and
Yeah,
honestly speaking, before I left the corporate world, as we lived through the COVID and, everyone thought, how is this going to be possible? Everyone did amazing, right? So,
yeah, yeah. I mean, being on it, like I have like 3 screens in front of me right now. I got a stand-up desk and, be able to multitask where like I be in a meeting, with like, a Zoom meeting or a Teams meeting, and I can have my mainframe window open, my SQL window open, and
right,
like and then the whiteboard open, and then you can actually be seeing stuff in real time. And you can say, "Hey," you
exactly.
show the programmer the UI. Like, here's the UI. This is what's actually happening. If I was
Yes.
in the room, I can't even do that as well as I can do that if I'm in front of all my machines where I
Yes,
can move things
absolutely.
around. And so, from an efficiency standpoint, and then also the idea, like the commuting, the idea is like I used to commute crazy. I used to have to fly, jump into Uber, be on the train, be in the car, be in the hotel. Now I have more time. If somebody that calls me at 6 o'clock at night, I'm not commuting. I'm actually able to work on the problem. But if I was
Exactly.
in the old job, I would be like, well, I'm 2 hours before I get home because I got to get home through the traffic where I can actually respond to the issue right away. And so those type of things, I think some people just don't understand the efficiency of or the being able to jump on something quick
Right.
because you have access to all your information and you're not in the car, you're not on the plane, you're not in the train.
Yeah. And I do want to address, you asked the question about the control, right? How do you kind of control that? And in the end of the day, I think the most effective way of controlling the productivity for your employees is just setting up the KPIs, the key performance indicators, and making sure that you as a leader, adhere to guidelines and stay in touch with your team, right? And have them being responsible for
Mhm.
reporting back to you. And that keeps them accountable with the process flow, right? So if you were ever in the corporate world, you always have these like middle management, project managers and whatnot, right? But everyone really understands what needs to be done because there's a main corporate goal and it trickles down to all the little
Yeah,
goals to
all
other
your
people.
deliverables. Yeah, yeah, like
Exactly. So
all your
you
work
got to
work
treat it the
items.
same.
Well, all
Yes,
your work items that you have is like, are you hitting your goals? Are you having like, a lot of volatility because the requirements keep on changing, or the
exactly.
task is harder than you expected, or the technology has a block. So you're
Yep,
blocked by this and you're blocked by that. And then it's the cascading and then your timelines are running. Or is it that the people aren't actually working on the task, but you can monitor tasks. You can see if somebody's actually, is that code working? Are they actually working on the UI? You actually can see if they're at their desk. You can see
right.
if they're typing. You can see if they finished the deliverable because you can track it on a system like Jira and SharePoint. You can see like what's the workflow. Is it
Exactly.
still in QA? Is it still in dev? Is it still here? Is it in production? Is it UAT? Like all these things that you can check. There's a lot of tools to is but if you physically wanna kinda micromanage and you wanna be able to
Yeah.
go to that cubicle and see, like, are they at the cubicle? Well, what the second you walk from the cubicle, they could be, like, on their phone. It doesn't mean that you're totally controlling.
Right, and I think I'm a firm believer for kind of staying away from micromanagement only because then you're buying yourself another job to micromanage, right? And that's overwhelming for a leader. I'm a firm believer for just having the KPIs for whatever it is, annual, quarterly, monthly, weekly, and have the employees sort of self-police themselves by reporting on their own KPIs on whatever the frequency that you guys establish. So if it's a weekly frequency, and you mentioned a little bit of sort of Gyre and other tools. That's more probably project management, IT related. But let's say you hired an admin person or maybe a salesperson, right? How do you? What are the KPIs? How do you track? There are some tools such as Time Doctor, Unequivalent that would just literally track their activity online. I never
Mhm.
use them because for every tool there is an antidote. There are a
Yeah,
lot of tools that would just kinda actually, uh, have a cursor of the mouse being, like, movable or showing them that they're working something. So, I just firmly believe that you have to inspire and motivate people and then, show them how they're responsible for, performing, right?
yeah,
So and when they come back to us and let's say it's a salesperson, well, the quota is maybe calling on, I don't know, 500 people a week. And we do have a tool that just kind of shows, how many calls they make because for them to keep track of that, it's also insane. So they'll go in every day and then they'll watch and well,
yeah,
I hit my quota or I didn't hit my quota, right? Or even for my staffing business, if we, have certain amount of outreach that we have to do per day, certain amount of interviews that had to be done per day, right? So, and then we measure the quantity and the quality. So, I think I'd rather stay in that boat rather than kind of dedicate a lot of my time and and kind of
yeah. Kinda
monitor
like
my
the
margin.
policing or, like, total micromanagement isn't that productive. Because if you don't trust your employees, like, that's, like, a trust issue in the first place.
Right.
Do you actually trust them? You hired them because they had a skill set, and if
Yeah,
you
but
trust that
trust but
they're
verify, right? So
yeah,
those
verify.
KPIs
Yeah.
would be your verification point.
Yeah, and the KPIs that there's so many tools from like Salesforce to like all these things that you can track what your sales are doing, what people are doing, on their actual laptop or their computer, what they're actually, you know, producing. But I think also the idea of being able to scale, like the idea, like maybe you can mention like if you're a business owner, how does outsourcing help you scale to different situations from the business cycle?
Sure, absolutely. I think everyone wants to scale with an agile approach because otherwise, a lot of statistics. Probably more than 80% of the businesses will fail in their first year, right? So
Mm,
you want to be careful in what you spend your money on. However, you also don't want to just grow like 1% a year or something like that, right? So you're going to try to find a middle ground. How can you grow fast yet not burn lots of cash as you do that? So outsourcing is one of those tools that allows you to do that. Again, depending on your business, but let's just say I don't know. I'll give an example of medical startup that we're working with. They started with outsourcing some of the admin roles, then marketing roles, then system roles. Eventually, they started bringing HR and project managers, and all of that was done globally until the moment where their VCs started telling them, "Hey, I would like for you to show us that you have a CTO. Would like for you to show us that you have a COO, right? Some of the global roles or some of the roles that would help them scale drastically uh,
mhm,
until they had maybe 20, 25 people. They didn't bring a local person. And that helped them a lot because a lot of the startups, even when they have funding, the very first thing that the money will be burned at would be marketing and people, right? So that's one of the biggest expense. So outsourcing helps you a lot. kind of growing very on a very kind of economical scale. I'll give you some examples. So we source people all over the globe. We started with Philippines, expanded to Latin America, sourced in Egypt, Eastern Europe, Africa. And some of the kind of statistics, I'd say, let's say, like if you take Philippines, Nicaragua, Argentina, Egypt, or let's say Zimbabwe, right? The average salary locally for the people there would probably be anywhere between $200 to $350 a month. So if they're going to get paid $1,000 a month, they're already at an upper middle class, right? You providing
Mhm.
such a great opportunity for somebody to support their whole family. Sometimes, one person in Philippines, let's say a young employee, can support their parents, their siblings, and if they have kids, right? So you're given an opportunity for somebody to work at a very cost-effective price for you, but somebody else is their life is literally changing, right?
Yeah. So
And
like,
from your perspective, let's say you hired an admin person, and it's a $5 an hour job, right? That's what you pay. Or if you now growing and getting to a more skilled profession, I don't know. Let's say you hired a professional bookkeeper that has all the certification. Well, maybe that's $8 an hour, right? If you're hiring maybe a marketing specialist that helps you post, maybe a little bit with content, $10 an hour, right? So the flexibility is there. I mean, even once you go to like higher level roles, maybe project manager or HR director, yes, the rates will go up to maybe $25, $30 an hour, but that is still significantly cheaper than you would hire somebody here in the United States for maybe $150,000, $200,000 a year, right? So that's essentially how you should look at it, right? The way that you can scale fast yet not burning cash.
ask in terms like business culture questions, in terms like if you have people from different like parts of the world and different cultures, and what's the like analysis to determine that somebody's the right fit, that they have the experience that's relevant to what the business is about.
Sure. I think there's definitely a need for education about different um, cultures in different countries. So I'll give you an example with the most common. So let's say like Philippines or Asia in general, people are generally are people pleasers. So it's harder for them to bring you a negative news. And negative for them could be, um, I needed to call 100 people today and I only called 95 or 80, right? And there could be valid reason for that. I don't know. Let's just say that they had to have an hour for themselves for whatever reason. And it's really, really hard for them to actually communicate that. So, what we typically do, once you actually aware and educated about the culture, we put it back on them. We actually relieve them from the sort of kind of their way of looking at it, and we say this is how we do it, and we actually love open communication. So I'm almost like authorizing the other person on the other line to say, if you bring me the bad news, it is so much better than I don't know anything about it at all, and
Yeah,
you try to
that's different.
cover under this rug, right? So this is how we're going to treat. That's part of the KPI. Like look at the monthly review, right? And let's kind of look at it, how many times did you actually had something negative to report to me that we could address versus how many times did you actually just decided to just be quiet and not say that. And there is a little bit of adjustment obviously, but I feel like even here in the United States, we're such a melting pot of different cultures. We're going to face it one way or the other based on just random personalities of people.
Mhm.
But if you are aware, and whoever you're hiring, if you're hiring somebody from India or you're hiring somebody from Latin America, you just have to do a little bit of digging, learn about their culture, and then open yourself up for that. Like be ready, and then give them the authority to again run with it, right? And say it's okay. It's okay
Uh,
that's occasionally, because like as a humans, we make mistakes, right? Come back
yeah.
to me with mistakes. Let's solve this together. And I think that's how you open up that channel. Um, will it come right away as 100%? No. But again, you come with expectations, right? You come with expectations that people have their own baggage, and baggage sometimes comes with the cultural setups, right? We come in. I grew up in a totally different country. I grew up in Central Asia. I lived in Europe. I lived in the United States, right? So I'm myself a melting pot of different cultures.
Mhm.
So I'm being more kind of acceptive of how everyone sort of navigates. But again, being open, creating that channel for trust, guiding them. That's probably what I would recommend.
Yeah, I've experienced that. I actually outsourced myself. I was an expat in Tokyo for 2 years. So I came to understand, it was an American company that operated a financial institution, opened up uh, you know, a division in Japan. And the problem that was a lot of times the Americans had certain expectations from like, Connecticut, and we're in Tokyo, right? And
Right.
so there was a different model, like in terms of like there was like this zero defect concept in Tokyo. And
Mhm.
there's also like this idea like, well, if you have like 10 problems on the error report, they're all priority one. And we're trying to get them to say, well, which one's less priority? So they're all high. And they
Yeah.
wouldn't want to give the level 10 the same weight as the level one. It's like, well, they're all bad. And so that was a struggle. And then also this idea, like if we made a mistake, like sometimes like they would actually go book a convention place and have the executive apologize to the customers, right? And in the US, if we don't do that. We just send like a note out saying we're sorry that this pricing error happened. We don't go and do that. So there was
Right.
like this cultural like understands like, oh, we got to ramp up and they got to ramp down maybe. Like they've got to find a balance between both. And it was really interesting living in that world, because then I started to like advocate to some of the American people. It's like I'm living here. I understand what's going on. You need to kind
Mhm.
of listen to what I'm telling you, because some of the Americans weren't hearing
Right.
what the Japanese were saying. They were just saying, well, we're just going to dictate what we do. And so there
Yes.
was this disconnect.
Absolutely. It's so different. Like when I was an expat myself in Switzerland, and I think just general European culture is a little bit more laid back, right? They don't understand why is it all about work for us Americans. So it's also an adaptation, right? So because we have a hybrid, we had, a few expats and a few Europeans. The work had to be adapted to the lifestyle of Europeans, right? Like nobody stays till 7 p.m., right?
Yeah.
5 o'clock, everyone's going to be gone.
Yeah.
And then we could hear sometimes from the corporate office, it must be nice leaving at 5 p.m.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
that's the
It's like,
reality.
yeah,
People still
like
produce
people are
work.
living in capsule hotels, because they're working till like midnight and then they don't go home.
Yes.
And so we give them permission, like you can actually take some days off. It's like, really? Like it's like, yeah, yeah, you should, because we don't want to. There's diminishing returns if you keep on staying up till
Exactly.
midnight. Like,
Exactly.
it doesn't actually it doesn't, you run out of gas, and if you run out of gas, it's like, okay, you're here, but you're not productive. So,
Yeah,
if
I
we
think we
rent
could probably be somewhere in the middle. I think Europe is a little bit of healthier middle. I think just depends on which country. The more southern you go, the more laid back it is.
yeah.
But in general, there is a healthy balance, and based on the results that were produced from our office in Europe, I would say that's a pretty healthy balance.
Yeah, I think it's important to, understand, what you're dealing with, and maybe we'll start going into, like, sensitive information or different, like, rules for confidentiality and privacy. Like, so if you're dealing with people in different, because sometimes, like, the European privacy rules are more stringent than American,
Correct.
right? In a lot of cases. Like, and so it's like if you offshore something to somebody that's like in Germany, they're familiar with the privacy rules there, and then they're like, oh, can I really do this? Is there some kind of, any issues in terms of like that? I think there was a question in terms of that you like to answer in terms of like the sensitivity of information and how you deal with that.
Yeah, absolutely. But basically, you would have to apply the rule of the employer as your main primary rule, right? So if you, let's say, a healthcare clinic, everything you do has to be HIPAA compliant, right?
Hmm.
There's a lot of patient data. But a lot of insurance companies, a lot of hospitals, they actually hire out people overseas. So a lot of times you'll hear, maybe somebody from Philippines are, doing your benefits verification, whatever it is. The good thing, there are a lot of talent that's HIPAA compliant, and HIPAA compliance. It's a U.S. based rule, right? So
Hmm.
there are a lot of talent that is now HIPAA compliant. There are some international standards. Let's say sometimes our clients want to find talent that's Lean Six Sigma, like they have
Hmm.
certain belts, right? That standard exists everywhere. You can get that certification everywhere. So we can find people with that talent too, with those certifications. So I would say in terms of data and security, depending on the size of your business, if you have a very small business, let's say that's your first employee, and you just want to offload a lot of admin tasks, well, maybe you use software like LastPass that allows you to share your credentials to certain websites that you need them to work on, without sharing the actual password.
Hmm.
So just plug in your information, and as they go in, it just logs in as you without them knowing the username or password. If you're at the larger scale business and you're trying to sort of adhere to certain standards, again, whatever your standards are, that's who you're looking for o- outsourcing. So you have two ways approaching that. You either find already people that already have that certification or whatever the standard is, or you train them on that, right? And have
Hmm.
them get certifications. But again, in that in our global economy, everything is possible.
Oh yeah, with VPNs, and you can build in the security network thing because we're dealing with a lot of private data and the HIPAA data. Because I deal with insurance companies, banks, so there's a lot of sensitivity at the level, SEC, NASCD, FDIC, and all these different groups that you've got, and then you've got like state, New York State has massive laws for insurance, like
Right.
very tight, in California too. So if you're dealing with like they've got the state regulation, you got the federal education, you got the insurance regulations and banking regulations because they're kind of in both zones. You got insurance companies that are partially like banks and banks partially insurance companies, so they're crossing over into different areas for whatever
Yeah.
product they're selling. So,
I would even say always ask yourself a question. Instead of kind of like thinking about that I can't do it, how can I do it?
mhm,
Because if you think about a, a lot of major corporations in the United States outsource a lot in terms of customer service, in terms of IT departments, shared services too, and all of them have regulations, right? You mentioned the insurance company, banking, financial institutions, all of them have regulations, and they figured out a way. So if they have figured out the way, there is a path for you already.
mhm,
So if you either going to be even like what we like to do is when we actually recruit people, we go on LinkedIn and recruit people from the companies that they work for. So for example, if I have a client that's looking for somebody who is HIPAA compliant, well, we can go to LinkedIn and look for everyone who's working for Optum or United Healthcare,
yeah,
and we
you can
already
find
know that they're
people.
HIPAA compliant, right?
Yeah,
So, and we offering them a new job and say, have you considered a new opportunity, right? So, the path is already laid out for you.
yeah, there's a lot of tools in terms of, the level of information you can get in terms of people's credentials, and like you're saying, you can find out if they're HIPAA compliant, you can find out if they've got their licenses or their certifications. So also in terms of like, the AI revolution, like how is that impacting what you do with outsourcing? Because there's a lot of people who are already seeing significant like salary decreases, role elimination, is that affecting some of what you do in terms of the outsourcing?
No, it only makes it so much better. We preach um, AI plus VA, right? Because you can find a different remote employee, but VA is virtual assistant. Um, think about you ever using ChatGPT. Do you still have to plug in the prompt?
Oh,
Do you
yeah, have to
still
type in
have
a prompt.
to
Yeah.
add, like, have multiple adorations of whatever? This is the best. This is the best of the both worlds, right? I love AI and I use it for a lot of things, but I still have to have a human being behind it to actually use it. It's still a machine, and somebody
Hmm.
still has to use it, right? So it's actually speeds up the productivity for our outsource employees and makes them be better, makes them learn faster. For us, it's an amazing tool. I don't see this being, taking jobs necessarily. I see this as optimizing efficiency for and productivity for jobs.
Hmm. Yeah, that's still. I still believe there's a human factor. Is just that some folks might think it's really the mindset of the people who are gonna use it. There's some people that feel like, well, I can eliminate this role because they can do this. But that understanding that like you still probably need a developer to look at the code and make maybe you don't need as many developers, but you still can't replace that human factor. It's like
Absolutely. If I go into ChatGPT and ask it, give me a code to develop an app, and it's going to give me some code, I will personally have no idea what to do with that. I'm not a
yeah.
developer. I don't even know first thing to start. Okay, what do I do with this code? Even if it's right.
Well, you can the cool thing is like even as a business analyst, you can use ChatGPT to build a requirement template, right? But you still have to write the guts of the what's in there. You can help you build the template, can help you wordsmith, but you still have to know the actual business case. And
Yes,
as a data analyst, like you're gonna provide your insight and your intuition, and those are still like human qualities and
correct.
the ability to discern, right? And we're not at the point where AI can discern at like the human capacity of somebody that's been in the business like 25 years that knows
Yes,
their thing, that knows their stuff. That's still valuable. It can do a lot of repetition and research tasks that maybe would have took you a lot of time to go physically and pull this information. You can get that stuff way faster, but you still have to validate and find out whether it's applicable to what you're doing and have the critical
absolutely.
thinking to actually just have the discernment, right?
Yes,
Yeah, that's important. But in terms of like you've already talked about the outsourcing cost and being able to really, upscale your business with like lower cost and actually not, in the workers, you're actually giving them a benefit in terms of increasing their lifestyle and actually improving their life, like their situation. Um, in terms of like the return investment for in terms of the efficiency, are there any issues with like time, like you might save money on a role like what we've seen sometimes in programming. We can bring in programmers that are lower cost, but sometimes the project takes longer to do, right? Or we might have to bring in more programmers and eventually we could, if we had an expert programmer that was a US programmer, they maybe have done it faster,
right.
or they so what would the concerns and things like that?
I would say it depends on the role. Actually, it's, in terms of programming, actually, I see quite a lot of talent that's so much better. Let's say in India or Pakistan, and then they have. I guess it's like anywhere. You just have to find the right talent for the right role. As far as any other role, and just thinking about productivity, again, I think it just depends on where you are in terms of the I guess you're a big business or a small business. Let's kind of discern on the small business. A lot of times in the small business, we are comparing the productivity to how we could do it, how fast we could do it. And sometimes a lot of the business owners are discouraged. They say, well, I don't have time to train anyone, or nobody can do it better than me. And, you know, why would I hire somebody where I can do it myself? So in the end of the day, you won't be able to grow if you don't hire, right?
Mhm. You
And
have to
coming back to the
delegate.
question, exactly, coming back to the question of the quality of work on or efficiency. Let's say me as a business owner, maybe I my close rate when I talk with clients, maybe it's 80%. However, I could assume that whoever else is going to do it, that I'm going to hire, maybe their close rate is going to be 20%. Well, my pay per hour is so much exponentially more than I would delegate to someone. Let's
Mhm.
let's give an example. Let's say I have 100 people in the pipeline, but I can only maybe talk to 50, and I will close 80% of those 50 people. But I still have 50 people in my pipeline that I can never talk to them just simply
Yeah,
because
you
I don't
can't
have
get to it.
time.
Yeah.
Right. And let's say I can bring in one person that
Mm. You froze there for a second. Mm. Seemed like you froze. I'm not sure what's going on. Oh, that's not good. Maybe she's we had a little bit of an internet problem. See if she's coming back. So hold a second. Hopefully she'll come back. I don't know if there's a I wasn't seeing a problem on our side, maybe a problem with the net. So we've been talking to Anna Lee. She is CEO of Outsource Your Task, helping businesses find top 3% talent worldwide. We'll see what happened. See if she can come back in. We've just been talking about, outsourcing and being able to use global talent and global talent that allows you to, scale up as a small business. And we were just talking about the kind of scenario where, somebody could be, entrepreneur. They can do 80% of the closing, but like they can't reach all their customers. They can only, there's like 100 customers, they can maybe only reach 50. If they hire somebody else, maybe their close rate's only 20%, but they're going to be able to engage the other 50%. Here we go. Bringing her back in. Hey, hello. Are you back?
oh my gosh, we just had a power outage.
Yeah, I noticed that
Crazy. I was just
because you
talking about the
froze.
hurricane.
Yeah, I froze, and I just
Yes,
I kept on talking about what we were talking about, that kind of 80% scenario where the entrepreneur can close, 80% deal. They got 50 clients, but they can't get the other 50. They can't talk to them, but they
exactly.
can engage somebody else that maybe can only close 20%, but then they're going to be able to, engage that additional 20%, and so that's if you got to scale up, sometimes you're not at the close rate that you're at, but you still have to, ramp up. And over time, that person will probably go from 20, 25, 30, 33, 34 to get better. And so, like, sometimes
Absolutely.
it's not 0 to 100. I think a lot of people want something to be like at 100, and it's like,
Exactly.
like you mentioned before, that people don't like to train. And I've heard there's like a statistic, like most jobs, most people can learn any job you give them. Like they could learn, most people could do it, but you want them to be at 100% day one. Well, sometimes like you
Absolutely.
might have something that's very specific, and then not a lot of people have it. So if you actually train, you could ramp up. I actually, the story, like I got into 20 years ago into insurance technology, and the company that hired me put me in a 6-month training program. And, I had been in insurance, working for an insurance company. Then I went to a company that does insurance software development because they invested
Mhm.
in me. Then I became a road warrior for them, and I worked for 5 years. going to all these big insurance companies, being able to sell their product. They took 6 months to train me, and then that was a good investment. It seems like a lot of companies have forgot that, like, you have sometimes you have to invest in the workforce. They just want to
Right, and I
grab
think it's a
people that
little bit
are
like a yeah, it's a little of nearsightedness because if you ask any business owner, "Do you want to grow?" There would be a resounding yes. But then when you ask them why you're willing to spend time in training, this is where they get shut down. They're like, "Well, I don't have time. The reason why I need to hire people is because I don't have time," right? But it's again, you calculate the ROI of your cash invested and time invested, right? So the ROI of the time that you're going to spend, maybe yes, you will have to bring in 10% of your extra time, that you don't have, but you obviously you can find it. If an emergency happens, you definitely find time. So bring in that 10% of the time, meet with your people, train them well, and then the benefit is so much exponential, right? Because you do the training once,
yeah,
and then as they know the baseline of what you're working on, then you can tell them, okay, for any future tasks that we're growing together, you're going to have to use your AI solutions or Google, whatever it is, to continue to learn yourself. So it's absolutely worth it, for anyone who wants to grow. If you don't want to grow, don't
yeah.
hire.
Yeah, because a lot of tools, like you said, you can put people into like the training, but you do have to have some kind of job shadowing, or some level of knowledge transfer has to occur at some level. Like there's a lot of stuff you can do, put on the employee to learn, but there's some stuff that's very specific to a specific industry. And there's this concept today with AI is like, if you have somebody that's been like in banking or insurance and they've been doing it for 20 years and they got all this business knowledge, and now you want to automate with AI and do workflows and process flows. Well, grabbing somebody that's like got the ability to have like the large learning library, and they know all the tokens, and they've got that specific take capability, but they don't have the business knowledge. Right.
Right.
So bringing them in without having the business knowledge of relate, they can implement, but they don't understand insurance. They don't understand banking. Right. So
Absolutely.
so if you take in somebody that's been a business analyst in that field and then start to train them on large learning libraries, on prompt engineering, you'll get a value add of automating that process. It's actually going to be consistent with what your business is. Right.
Yes. And I
And
find
there's,
myself, in
there's
that
reluctance
trap too.
to do
Yeah,
that.
where you basically think that when you hire a specialist, they're gonna do it all for you, right? But let's say you want to create an app and you hired somebody who is an app developer. You're still gonna have to interview with them multiple times. They're gonna have to get the requirements out of you. Nobody can read your mind, right? So they're gonna meet with you, they're gonna create the storyboard, they're gonna, give you some samples on Figma. You have to sort of authorize, yes, I like it or I don't like it. It's almost like
Hmm.
building a house, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
If you can probably get a pre-assembled model, yes. So we have some websites that are pre-assembled. So you can have a pre-assembled sort of kind of like baseline house. But if you have any desire to have anything custom or something
Yeah.
that speaks like you still have to guide that process. And
Yeah.
those specialists have
What
to
you see
extract
is
the
what you get.
information.
Yeah, you
Exactly.
like people. It's like a WYSIWYG, like what you have to like be involved. You can't like people don't mind read. It's like it's like
Exactly.
if I'm with a producer and a recording engineer, and it's like, and they're telling me like I don't hear it. Like, well, you gotta tell me more than you don't hear it. Like you
Hmm.
gotta tell me like do I need to change the chord arrangement? Do I need to put a fifth or a diminished seventh? Like what are you telling me? Just tell me you don't hear it. Well, then we could be there all day until you hear it. It's like you need to give me a little bit more than that.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely.
So yeah, I think it's really an interesting like world where we're in a global world. I think a lot of people understand that, and being able to engage like the whole planet instead of saying, "Well, I can't find anybody." But like you're offering the capability, like, well, we can actually not just look in your neighborhood, not let's look in your city, not just look in your state. You can look at the whole world and find that
Yes.
top 3% that's going to work for you.
That's exactly it. I mean, it just the we're operating in the global economy one way or the other, right? The social media, the internet, and everything made us just even so much more connected. I mean, we're listening to K-pop, right? Or
Yeah,
we eating the food
K-drama.
from all over the world, right? Why not expand just the way that we're perceived the hiring and find that best talent? And more often than not, it's not just about the price. You actually have highly educated people. I don't know if you know, in Zimbabwe, 90% of the population has bachelor degrees, but the ability to find employment is less than 50%.
Yeah,
So just think about of all the talent that's just sitting there, highly educated, and they can't find jobs, right? So you can find that talent. I know we've brought on board sometimes people with PhDs, right? I
yeah,
one of the real estate company was looking for a project manager for commercial projects, and they needed somebody with certification in plan swift, but we found them a fully blown architect, like, and there are international standard codes that everyone is being trained on.
yeah,
And we not only found somebody who's trained with international codes, they're architects, they understand plan swift, it's a software that they use, but besides that, they understand US codes too, right? So
yeah,
everything is possible. A lot of the countries that just don't have enough of job opportunities, the folks there looking up to maybe European, Australian, New Zealand, or US codes to just adapt. So everyone's
yeah.
kind of looking west to adapt to get those jobs.
Get to the standard because that's what we run into. A lot of people like don't aren't engineers or don't have the mathematics because like the American school system sometimes is falling flat on teaching
Hmm.
mathematics, physics, logical thinking. Because our school system wasn't really built to do that, and there's other school systems that have been kind of engineered to do that,
Right.
and our system, still needs massive rehaul in terms of it wasn't really. It was actually sending people to work in factories and agricultural, and it still got the same structure in a lot of
Yes.
cases. And it's like, well, if this is the 21st century, why are you still building on an agricultural industrial model that's over? Right? That's not where we are. And
Yes.
that's why I think there's a lot of opportunity for what you're doing because there's a lot of people from other cultures that understand that and they actually have set their systems to actually provide the skill sets that the world needs.
Yeah, and
And we got
diverse cultural background also allows the company to, as a living organism almost, as you bring a lot of diversity to just the thought process itself, you don't even think. Sometimes, like, my employees challenge me to think very differently. I cannot tell you how much I regret not listening to my SEO specialist who is in India. And he was telling me, Anna, you got to concentrate. One of my businesses is very local. You got to concentrate on the highest populated city. For you, it's Philadelphia. Do not concentrate on the small town in suburbia where you're trying to, get as many leads for your real estate business. I said, it doesn't make sense. I want my leads to come from there, not from there. But he's like, it's just that's how it works. You
yeah,
have to
yeah,
concentrated yo SEO on the largest populated city. And I didn't listen to him for about 4 to 6 months. So it's just the money waste that sometimes we're just so much stuck in our ways that we think we
yeah,
know better as business owners. And then finally I heard him and we started pouring more effort into Philadelphia. Oh my gosh. Till this day, I'm so grateful for this guy because long time ago I stopped paying for the SEO services, but the leads keep on coming.
yeah.
So
It's
it's an
real important.
evergreen investment.
Listening skills are like the primary thing that a lot of people don't get. They just like it just goes over their head because they got these preconceived notions like, okay, you're living in that box. It's like that's what it is. That's your world, and you're not willing to go expand your mindset. It's like the
Yes.
growth mindset. It's like sometimes like, music's like you can't just stay in this genre. Sometimes like
Mhm.
if you mix country with hip hop, you get something different. And people say, well, you can't do that. But then when somebody does it, it
And
explodes.
Beyonce just proved us wrong.
Yeah. So you can do it, but people will always try to tell you in the canon of anything that, oh, you
Yes.
gotta stay in this. And that's fine because that's where they feel comfortable. A lot of people want to go to safety because it makes them feel good. But a lot of
Yes.
times, like if you're gonna push, you're going to be in a place that's a little unsafe feeling, and but that's the only way you're going to grow is you're going to go into the place that you kind of just you're not treading water, but you're going to a little bit over to the deep end. You're not going to drown.
Mhm.
You might think you will, but you won't. But it's going to be uncomfortable until you get
Yeah.
into the swing of things. And I think
And if you
that's what.
wanna go into the business, you're definitely not gonna find comfort. I
Yeah,
can tell you that. Business is what trains you to actually be okay with being uncomfortable, and, not have stability sometimes and, have unpredictability all the time, and it's okay. I mean, I think, we're business owners, we're a little bit crazy. We kinda, get a kick out of that.
yeah. I think it's like the artist thing, like the idea, like our artists will push it. People say, "What are you doing?" And like, well, people will come to it. Like you put it out there and it's like I'll find the audience. You'll find it. And you got to take that
Yeah.
risk. You can't be risk averse. But I want to thank you for being a guest on the Family Electric Ghost podcast. It's been great. I want to let people know they can go to outsourceyourtax.com. Can you tell people like if they go there, is that how they engage with you to set up a connection with you to talk to you about things?
Yeah, absolutely. If you go on the website, just scroll through whatever the services that you prefer and connect with me because there's an opportunity to just get started, and they get to pick a day on Calendly and we'll chat.
Great. Well, thank you. Have a great day. I never forget.
Thank you
I
so
always
much.
get. Yeah, what's daytime here? But I sometimes it's nighttime when I talk to other people. But thank you again for being on the show.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.